picking back up here. It's November 18th, 2015, and we'll continue to chat about Grandpa's aviation training. We were just talking about his time in Greenwood and Dothan and Eglin. Just to review a bit, you were in Dothan from February 1944 through really the end of April, about early May. In early April of 44, you graduated from Dothan with your wings. At Dothan, you learned to fly a retractable land gear, fixed wing plane. You learned to fly a plane. That same plane had more horsepower than any of the previous planes you flew, and you continue to work on your navigation training, both daytime navigation and nighttime training. And after getting your wings in April of 44, you went to
wings in commission, I guess.
Wings in commission.
Yeah, I think it's
that's the technical term.
wings.
Oh, you wings and commission. Okay.
Yeah, right.
After getting your wings and commission,
Yeah.
You went to Florida to train do gunnery training at Eglin Army Air Force Base. Spent a couple of weeks there, and then went back to Dothan for a few more weeks to train on the P-40. And so by late April or May, you actually went to Richmond, Virginia. And what was the name of the base that you went to at Richmond?
Just Richmond Army Air Base, I think.
Richmond Army Air Base is where you arrived?
Yeah.
And then you spent quite a bit of time, or at least a couple of months, in the Richmond area.
Yeah.
And what was the next step in your training? What did they train you on?
Well, the goal or the objective was to train you for overseas assignment in the P-47.
So that's the first time you flew
Yeah.
the P-47?
Yes, that's true. Right, yeah.
So they assigned you to that plane in Richmond?
To learn how to fly that
Okay.
plane, yes. Yeah. And they had training exercises that were designed or so that there really was you didn't have any real instructor participation. You just sit down with another pilot basically who had been through the same thing, and he would describe what he wanted you to do as an exercise, and then he went out and executed that. And I guess an example would be the exercise that had to go something like this: that you took off and established a rate of climb at so many 100 feet per minute, etc. And then you maintained a certain heading of, in this case, it was somewhere in the vicinity of north, plus or minus a few degrees. And when you got to a certain altitude, and you were approximately a certain altitude of approximately, it really was as much as that you could maintain, because some airplanes, especially it had to do somewhat on the condition. In other words, the number of hours that the engine had on it, and so on. In other words, whether it was a brand new engine or so on. But you did. You would be in a neighborhood of approximately 25,000 feet. That'd be your altitude, and you would be about over Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. When you reached that point, then you would just turn around 180 degrees and gradually come back to Richmond, Virginia, and land the plane. And what some of the things that you that were worth noting was that as you got that high, by the time you got to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, if you looked off to your right, you could see probably Washington D.C., Philadelphia, Baltimore, etc. And I know it was at the time of day when it was approaching the twilight or hours when you needed artificial light, so you could see the lights being turned on in the various cities and so on. It's kind of an experience that you don't, it's a noteworthy experience. That's all.
So you watched the sun go down and the lights come on.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't get fixed on it, but
Yeah.
it was something that all you got to do is look out there, and there it is. See, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, was kind of just a point on your somewhere along the line you had to turn around and come back, see, and lose your altitude and so on. And a lot of it was in testing and using the your oxygen equipment, and also it gave you a chance to see how the airplane itself operated, how it reacted through your control systems and so on. And so that was a typical example of what you learned about flying a P-47. Some of its outstanding characteristics did depend on the fact that it gained in its efficiency as you gained altitude. It was much better. You were much better equipped using that if you were involved in air-to-air combat because of the technical advances of the equipment itself.
So, what other? This was your first stop in Richmond. Where else did you go in Richmond?
Oh, when we completed a number of these exercises that I've described, then we were ready to proceed with more gunnery training, and that was done at Norfolk, Virginia, down on the coast of the Atlantic coast there. And
approximately, do you recall which month about you were in Norfolk?
That had to be probably in, I would say, September.
Oh, okay, so you were at your first stop in Virginia for quite some time.
Well, let's see. No, we were in like in Blackstone. We were there probably a month, and we came back to Richmond. We were probably there maybe another month, and then we were in Norfolk probably, we'll say, another month.
Okay.
And then we went back to Richmond and went through the process of shipping overseas. I think we had to go up to, I forget where we did ship out from. It was probably up around Philadelphia or somewhere in there.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So in Norfolk, though, you did more gunnery training just along
Yeah.
the coast. So
Yeah,
you were kind of doing
similar to the gunnery training we had down in Florida, except we were using a P-47 instead of a AT-6. Yeah.
that was the plane you were flying in Florida.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
What? Do you remember what month you went over to Europe?
Well, there again, I think it was in October.
October.
Yeah.
And when did you know you were going to go to Europe?
Actually, when we went to, in other words, after I left and continued, advancing as far as the using our training in the P-47, I knew right then that we were eventually going to be used or assigned as replacement pilots to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know at that time whether it would be in France or in England, or with the 8th Air Force or the 9th Air Force.
And did you know when you would be deployed? Or did you just know it would be sometime in the near future?
Yeah, we didn't really have any control over the process of how long it took,
Mm-hmm.
and so on, or how much traveling you had to do to get to that point, and so on.
So did they explicitly tell you, all right, you're going to go into the European front? Or was it more you just knew it because you were training on the P-47 and you knew the P-47?
I think it was if it kind of separated itself like this, that if you were assigned to the 8th Air Force,
Mm-hmm.
It was going to be P-51s.
Mm-hmm.
If you were assigned to the 9th Air Force, it would be P-47s. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the two air forces, one was an air force that was built around bombing with basically B-17s and B-24s and so on, and the other air force was built against air support of the ground troops. That was the 9th Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turned out, there was a lot of it. It depended on if you knew people, say in the 9th Air Force and a particular group, you could say if they have an opening, I'd like to join that particular unit or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I guess I went through the whole deal of an Air Force is a combination of tactical aircraft that can be, like in the case of the 9th Air Force, it was P-47s. They had a few groups that had P-51s, but most of the fighter groups were P-47. I think they had probably, if I want, something like 17 groups in Europe, and they were all deployed on the once the invasion took place. They were all deployed on France, mostly in France, along with the Allies. They had their own air forces and so on.
Okay, and what was your Air Force again?
9th Air
The
Force.
9th Air Force.
Yeah.
And so we can get over onto Europe in one of the next segments.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to talk about or mention or can think of on the Richmond area and your training there? Coming back up out of the south a little bit, back to the north.
Mm-hmm. There probably is. When I get thinking, why,
Write it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Use that system.
Alright, we'll stop this segment there and then we'll continue on with another one later.
Mhm.